How many screenplays have you written?
Probably around 17 or 18. Yeah.
And these are feature length or shorts?
It's a mix, pilots as well as features. Probably, actually mostly features, maybe 5 pilots.
Is your process always the same?
No. My process changes with every script. Although recently, I think I've found my process that really works. But in the beginning, it was like I was trying different processes to see what works best for me. Like I've done the note cards. I've done where I just start with a blank page and just start writing a script. But now I think what works for me is I'll start with a treatment, and then from that, I'll go to a script, like a first draft. And then from there, I'll go back to a treatment, because a lot of times I'm going to a script really just to explore, because a lot of times the ideas come to me as I'm writing an actual scene. And I'll start figuring out things after I've sort of done a vomit draft. Then I'll start seeing, okay, these are the characters and this is what I'm really trying to do. But then I kind of throw that away, and then, in order to throw that away, I have to go back to an actual blank page, and I'll start with a treatment again. Because a lot of times things might change around structurally and all that.
For some of the screenplays that you've written that maybe take place in more of a underworld or a criminal element, did you ever immerse yourself in, let's say, a bar in a bad part of town, and just to kind of soak up the feeling?
Yeah, well, when I was making Las Vegas Story, so like the woman who plays the lead actress, it's pretty much like about her actual life story. And she was actually a friend of mine, before we made the movie. So she took me to like some random places, like very shady, I guess, clubs, or, and I met like a bunch of interesting characters, just put it that way. But yeah, I definitely try to put myself out there to understand like what the texture is, of this world and how those characters talk. For Bang Bang, I already knew a bunch of like Asian gangsters, so I already kind of had that mapped out in my head. But even for that movie, I put real gangsters in the movie. Like Ty G, he's a real gangster rapper, but he's actually a real gangster. So for that, I think my research was already done. But yeah, I would like to put myself out there as much as I can. I think as a writer, you should, to really get an authentic feel. Even if you're gonna go away from that, to know what the real world is like, and then you can write more of a, exaggerated or fantastical version of it.
So one world you kind of sort of already knew, or you saw from the outside, and another world a friend brought you into, and you were sort of a fly on the wall in some interesting places. Did you ask questions, or you just observed?
I had a few meetings with people, and I would tell them like, hey, I'm writing a movie and da-da. And like, it would be an actual interview. Like they would tell me all these stories and this happened and da-da to them. And then there would be times when we went to a location or a place, and I would just hang out, and just watch.
What do you tell yourself before you begin a screenplay or a film?
Tell myself, you better really like this story, because it's going to be painful. That's kind of like the truth, I question myself of like, hey, like what kind of a story are you trying to tell here? Why are you writing this? What is interesting about this story or world or character? And that's kind of like where I really just go from, And at a certain point, if I lose interest in it, then I stop writing it.
So do you test yourself? Will I want to stay committed to this for 3 years? And if I don't, if I'm having any doubts?
I don't really set like a time limit like that, but I'll constantly go back to like what's interesting about this to me. Because if I'm not interested in it anymore, then it's really difficult to write something.
Well, for Bang Bang, what kept you going the entire time?
I was interested in the dynamic of a rich kid trying to be a gangster, and then it came from that, of like a person from a rich family kind of like put into a gangster lifestyle, and why would somebody want to do that? Because I saw that in real life with a lot of people, in my neighborhood, where they came from really nice families, really rich families, but they were just trying to be like the hardest gangster out there. But yeah, I think that was just a driving force of like me trying to understand like why, or what does this look like, the friendships, the dynamics, and what are some, situations that could happen.
Yeah, and maybe by being the bad seed, they were getting back at their parents or whatever it was. Maybe they didn't feel at home in that world. From people that I've met that did similar, they never really felt like they fit in.
Yeah, a lot of, and with the character in Bang Bang, his family, I mean, he's considered a parachute kid, which is like the parents kind of just drop you off in a foreign country, America, and then they go and do business in Taiwan or wherever. So the kid was left alone a lot, with a Beamer, like a BMW, all the money he wants, big mansion, but like there's no guidance and no discipline. So what do you think is going to happen to this kid who is also looking for love and acceptance? And if he has the money and the cars, that's the first way that he can get accepted, right? Oh, he's the guy with the cool car. Okay, well, what's gonna come after that? He needs to prove to other people that he's not just a rich kid, that he's also like down with the streets. Like he's trying to prove something because he's trying to fill up a void in his life.
And then, but you're also drawn to the poor character or more working class, and their struggles, which are just as troubling.
I'm drawn to that character because that's kind of how I grew up. Me and my mom, we really didn't have much growing up. We lived in a studio apartment, sleeping on the floor. Like I slept on the floor probably most of my middle school and high school life, and I was perfectly fine with that. I actually like the hard floor.
It's good
even
for your
now.
back, yeah.
Like, yeah, it's really good for your back. But yeah, I was drawn to that struggle of like just not having much, but you're trying to get out of that, trying to do better for yourself.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have a stepbrother, yeah, or I'm a half brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wow, so that was your bedroom, was the floor in the studio.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I knew people like that too, and I grew up in an apartment as well, so a makeshift curtain divided a room, or
Yeah.
So it sounds like that was a more personal story for you, but with Las Vegas Story, what was it that drew you to those characters? 'Cause it looks like very interesting characters.
Yeah,
from the
that
trailer.
story, it was really from my friend Christina. Like I was drawn to her story, like her life story, and how she's an incredible mom to her 4 kids, and how she was able to do that, and just her struggle, right? Like, how does she deal with all that, like the stuff that she goes through, and still be able to provide a great life for her children. And I think just like the world of Vegas, something about it was like kind of surreal to me, like you go there and suddenly you're not living by norms. You're just like, oh, everyone's trying to be somebody they're not. People are just spending money or losing their entire lives in the casinos, and they make it seem so fake but so happy. Just like, I don't know, it's just like a strange place, and I kind of want to tell a story in that world.
Do you have a voice that encourages you or nags at you when you start something? I know you said earlier, do I really want to do this? But is there a voice? Are you battling any dual voices? One that's telling you this is going to be great, I can't wait, and the other one's saying, don't screw this up.
I think there's definitely a part of that going on. But I don't think for me it's that distinct. I think there's always some doubt, you know. Usually for me, I start off with, I write the script and then I think it's like the best thing ever. And then slowly that feeling goes away as then I start doubting myself. Like, is this that great? Like maybe you should have somebody read it, you know? And then depending on what people say, I'll really take that feedback. Like if the first feedback is somebody saying, oh, this is great, then I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I got it. I have $1 million script right here. But if somebody's like, oh, I don't know, or if they don't respond super positively, then I start having self-doubts. So yeah, definitely like back and forth, but it's really kind of like a gradual voice, I guess.
Do you have a group of people that you trust that you send your scripts to?
Yeah, I mean, not a big group. I have a few people, like filmmaker friends, writer friends, that I'll send my stuff to. But I also use some like consultants, like, or I guess these websites like Screenplay, or and I have a couple like private consultants that I use where they'll give me like very, you know, in-depth feedback.
So maybe more unbiased, or I don't know, more biased. What do you think when you pay for the services of someone? It's more biased or unbiased?
I think it's a little bit unbiased because, you know, if you show it to a friend or a writer friend, sometimes they might not necessarily give it to you straight, you know, because they're also excited for you maybe. I mean, there's a lot of influences, right? But with a consultant, you have to kind of be careful like who you pick. But yeah, they'll usually tell you if it's not really working for them. But I always take multiple feedbacks before I really kind of like accept what the bigger picture is.
How do you create authenticity in your screenplays?
I think a lot of it is research, but now I really think authenticity, it really comes from an understanding of human nature, and that's really what it comes down to. Like, are you telling a story about characters who are real, right? And in order to do that, you have to understand how people will react or why people do certain things. So if you don't understand that, then you're just creating caricatures that you've seen in another movie, for example. So to really create like authenticity, I really think it comes from like a deep understanding of human nature, which for me really didn't happen until just a few years ago. Like I was telling you, just through my own like experiences and, you know, kind of like looking back in my own psyche and my own life, you start understanding a lot about like, you know, how things from your childhood affect you now, you know, some impulses, stuff like that can affect you now. And you start seeing that in like other people too, right? People who have problems or, you know, dealing with hardships. Yeah.
But you've traveled the world, correct? Or you've been overseas?
Yeah, I've traveled a little bit, yeah.
So you've seen, you know, different things, and you said that as a kid maybe, or teenager, you had a little more freedom than someone who had a curfew, can only watch one channel.
Yeah, okay.
And you're those kids too.
That's the one thing I would say as well, that you gotta just get out there and explore, see the world, meet different people. I think the biggest influence, well, maybe not the biggest, but definitely a big part, when I was living in Germany, I was an English teacher, and I would teach all sorts of people. Like it wasn't just Germans. I had students who were from Syria, who were from Algeria, Afghanistan, because like a lot of them, they came as refugees, and you know, once they learned German, they had to learn English, because if you don't know English, then it's actually quite difficult for you to get a job out in Germany. And I would spend hours every day talking to these people. Like the way you teach language is you teach them the grammar, but at a certain point, it's just about speaking. Like I ask a question, they answer, they ask me a question, I answer. And then you just start talking to each other. And like, I've learned so much about these people to the point where it was like, even one of them was telling me, they're like, wow, this is kind of like therapy. Like I just tell you everything about my life or problems.
That would make a great film, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a 2-hour film just in a classroom talking, but.
Or, you know, there could be an arc to the character. Maybe the teacher goes for their own reason, and then they end up being changed by these students who either had equal or more greater hardship, you know, and they all kind of become their own makeshift family. So it's...
Yeah. I've thought about that. Just gotta, you know, put the pieces together.
Right. I mean, if you, let's suppose you wanted to make something that was close to your heart, are you going to keep the little distributor voice in the back saying, okay, do we have a star in this? Or is it more about, I need to tell this story, and if it doesn't make money, I'm okay with that?
I think I got past that. I think after the 3 films I made, which were very personal films, I'm kind of over that part. And if there is a story that I really want to tell, I'll write the script. And I think just through that process, I've already like released my creative, you know, outpour. But now I'm definitely looking into other ways of creating as well. Like you can make animation movies with Unreal Engine where you don't need to worry about like getting, you know, millions of dollars to make the story that you want to tell. So if you do have a story where you're like, I have to tell it, but I don't have millions of dollars to make it, you can just make it as an Unreal Engine animation. And it actually looks very realistic, the way that the CGI characters are nowadays with the new release of Unreal Engine 5. So that's something I'm actively like pursuing now.